Welcome into a 7-round mock draft for the Chicago Bears, the second 7-round mock that I am doing on this channel. This is my first second 7-round mock draft that I've done on the show. I'm doing mock drafts for pretty much every team. This is a NFL draft channel. I love the NFL draft. I live the NFL draft, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the Chicago Bears and what they should do after we've seen free agency. We know what they have. They've done a really good job in free agency. There's not a ton of holes in this roster, in my personal opinion. I'm a big fan of the Bears, and I think they got some really good things ahead of them. Let's go ahead and make this team really, really good for the 2025 regular season. All right, and here we are with the 10th pick, and just looking at how this draft went down, not the most realistic. Obviously, Abdul Carter going 6 and Travis Hunter going 8 is not on my bingo card. I find that very hard to believe, but as far as just the 9 players that went in front of us, the majority of them I do expect to go in front of us, so I'm okay with where we're at with the Bears, and it puts us in a weird spot because Ashton Jeanty could have fallen and we would have taken him in a heartbeat. I think, even if Tyler Warren is there, you probably just take him just because you can do so many different things with him, and I think Ben Johnson would have a field day. I am not a McMillan guy, and we don't need wide receiver anyway, but I actually kind of agree that Matthew Golden would probably fit better with the Saints than it doesn't matter. I'm getting off topic. But looking at where we're at with the Bears, I think we can go a lot of different ways with this. Ton of different ways. Now, cornerback would be one of the first things I would think, right? Stevenson is our cornerback 2. He's the outside corner. We have Gordon, who is our slot corner. That's what Jahad Barron, would be playing. So he doesn't really fit what the Bears need for me anyway. Will Johnson does. And there's a huge drop-off after Will Johnson. And for me, I will tell you, I do believe Will Johnson is a top 10 pick in this class. I think he should be anyway. I'm dying on that hill because apparently I'm by myself in that belief that Will Johnson is that level of talent. It doesn't seem like that's what's going to happen. I'm going to try and at least be somewhat realistic. I'm definitely going to insert my takes and be a little bit bold with what I think can happen, but that just doesn't feel like the way the NFL's going. Malachi Starks feels really early for me at 10, but safety's a need, and I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't love it, but I wouldn't hate it. Mike Green is a really, really interesting name for me. Outside of Sweat, we don't have a ton at the defensive end position. Now, I've heard, and I don't know this, but I've heard that the Bears would be unlikely to take a guy like Mike Green because of the off-the-field issues. He is at Marshall for a reason. He had an issue in high school, and then he had an issue really early on when he was at Virginia Tech, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on what school he transferred out of. But 2 years at Marshall, and this past year just absolutely dominant, special stuff. Has the speed, has the explosiveness. And again, I'll tell you that it doesn't seem like that's where the Bears would go with it. And for me, a guy who dominated at Marshall, played really well. He did well in his big games. He played Ohio State, and he got a sack there. He played well. But ton of production from a small school doesn't scream top 10 pick for me. Just he's going to go in the first round, and this class is so weird. It's going to be so random, the names that go and where they go. It's going to be all over the place. These mocks are not going to be close. They're not going to be close. So it's kind of tough. Now, I would consider a trade down because I think there's a ton of value from a ton of different spots. The problem for me is I can't really write you a narrative that would make a whole lot of sense for a team to trade down. And the way I try and do it is I try and base it on the teams that are offering a trade, that are interested in the pick. And then I kind of build out a scenario where the trade makes sense. That's the only way I'll trade in these mocks. And I usually only do it early because the later on you get, it's not as fun or interesting, I don't think. What PFF is giving me, I don't think the Rams would ever trade up from 26. I don't think the Eagles would ever trade up from 32. What it would cost would just be too much. And the Eagles love their picks, and they're really good at drafting. So why would they spend a bunch of picks to go up? You don't do that unless you're kind of bad at drafting. Rams, same kind of conversation. These are well-run organizations. They're not going to trade up multiple picks, possibly give up a first-round pick next year for really nobody on the board that moves the needle that much. There's Abdul Carter isn't on the board. Travis Hunter isn't on the board. Those are the guys you trade up for. Ashton Jeanty, maybe, but he's a running back, and this is a great running back class, so I don't even know if you would do that with him. So I'm talking in circles a little bit because I don't know exactly where I want to go with this. As I'm sitting here thinking about this, and I think there's a lot of ways you can go with this. You could add another guard. Will Campbell, in my opinion, is going to be a guard in the NFL. We did some great moves adding interior. It's not the biggest need in the world, and it's a great interior class. We can add another interior piece to the offense that isn't the 10th pick in the draft that can't start or can't get on the field because there's veterans in front of them that we've already traded for. So doesn't put your organization in a weird spot by taking Will Campbell. That's kind of the big reason I would pass on him. This is too early for Malachi Starks for me. I already talked about the Mike Green conversation, just the off the field. One of my favorite players in the class, and I am bullish on this, and I'm probably going to get some hate in the comments. Jalen Walker, one of my favorite players in the class. I think he is an absolute dog. I think he fits the mindset that I think a Ben Johnson would want to bring as far as a culture. And yeah, I think I'm going to take a guy who I think has a really good chance of going top 15. I really do. I believe in this pick. I think it's a real possibility. We're going to go ahead and take Jalen Walker out of Georgia, the 10th pick. That's bold. That's out there. That is not something that I've seen before, but I think you have to consider it. And with the second round, I mean, look, just so much talent. You got to love where we're at in the second round. I think we have to go interior. I do. I think we have to go interior. TJ Sanders out of South Carolina, classic 3-tech, big player. I think he would fit well next to Grady Jarrett. We have Dexter there. So we have some pieces on the interior, but I really wouldn't mind just improving that defensive line with the first 2 picks. Josh Connerly still being here is very interesting. We have a pick in 2 spots, so we kind of get to choose here. Running back is going to be a conversation. See the running back. Quinshon Judkins is there. Dylan Sampson's there. Kyle Johnson. Travion. Yeah, we got Caleb Johnson, excuse me. We got all the names that you would expect to be in this range. Omarion Hampton's really the only guy that isn't there. And I will tell you, if Gray Zabel would have fallen one more spot, I would have taken him. I absolutely would have taken him 39th overall. So interesting spot for the Bears. They're going to grab some great talent in this range of the draft. I am going to go ahead and pull the trigger on TJ Sanders. I really like Darius Alexander as well. He's a great player. I think he will probably sneak into the first round ultimately. I think TJ Sanders more likely pick here. And he's an attacking 3-tech, and I think that's kind of more the defense that I would expect the Bears to value. So we're going defensive picks 2 in a row, helping out the front 7. Look, a lot of offensive firepower in this division. Got to have some boys on the front end that can handle a load. And I think TJ Sanders, I think Jalen Walker. This is improving your defense in a really, really big way. So we're going to do that, and then we get to decide between a running back or a safety. And yeah, I mean, we got the 72nd pick. Based on this board, I'm pretty okay with any of these 3 safeties. I like Makuba more than Ransom, but Kevin Winston Jr. is there in the 3rd. I would love it. I don't know that in real life I expect him to be, but he had the injury, and you just never know with stuff like that. It's going to scare teams away. And yeah, we're gonna take the running back. We have Swift there. He's not a huge factor for me in this conversation. Henderson is kind of the name that I think people talk about a lot because he kind of fits that Jahmyr Gibbs comp, but he's not Jahmyr Gibbs. He's not what Jahmyr Gibbs was in college, and I don't think he projects to be the level of player that Jahmyr Gibbs in the NFL. Jahmyr Gibbs is special, very, very special, like Hall of Fame level type of running back. Like, he's that special. TreVeyon Henderson is really good, really, really good. He doesn't have, to project him to a Gibbs isn't right. I'm going to just go with my best running back on this board. That's Quinshon Judkins. As far as just the upside, well, Caleb Johnson's probably my best running back on this board. But for the Bears, I'm going to take Quinshon Judkins. I think he fits what the Bears would want to do. I think he has a little bit of everything in him. And, I thought his best stuff was while he was in the playoffs down the stretch. You saw some of the best out of him, and he really performed at the biggest moments. Let's look and see if a safety or corner has fallen. And look at that. Kevin Winston Jr. is there in the 3rd round. We're taking him. Look, injured. I get it, but he's big, tall, 6'2", 208 pounds. He's 21 years old. I didn't even realize that. Just has absolutely no stats because he played 2 games. Got hurt in the middle of his second game. It's unfortunate. It is what it is, but still a really good player. You're getting a discount on a guy who I think can go in and be a day one starter at the next level. All right, now that we get to the 5th round, look, we're out of premium picks. The one thing that I said I wanted to do in the first round that I wasn't able to do was add interior help. I wanted to add one more piece, and I also wanted to add a cornerback too. So those were the kind of the 2 pieces. At cornerback, Quincy Riley's interesting. Doesn't have the play strength that I like. He's explosive. He's fast. Denzel Burks is like your classic cornerback too. I think he would threaten in a year or two. Well, he probably won't be there in the 5th. So we're kind of probably just going to be okay with Stevenson slotting in as that CB2 and trusting him. Also, you can trust your depth guys as well, but Stevenson, look, up and down player, but he's still young and he can grow. That was just one of the positions that I felt like could use improvement. I do also think it's really important to address the offensive line, all right? We can't just forget about offensive line just because we addressed it in free agency, all right? And Seth McLaughlin's here, had the Achilles injury late in the season, December, I think, so he's not going to really be available for 2025. But he was a great interior player for Ohio State. He's an older guy. I think, if he develops off of if he's doing well after his Achilles injury, he can go to a spot where he doesn't have to start. That's the key here. And I think you can play him anywhere on that interior. He says center. I think he'd be fine at guard. He's not so small that he couldn't play guard. Based on my memory, yeah, he's 6'4", 3. He could play guard. He'd be fine at guard. I guess he played center in college, but he could do it all. And he played, over 1,800 snaps, I think it said. So that's a really, really good player that I think has a ton of potential at the next level. And in the 5th round, that's just such a steal. And then now we're landing in the 233 and 240 range. So a couple picks late that we'll kind of just see if we can we add another running back to the running back room. Woody Marks over here from USC, explosive jitterbug type of guy, really, really fun highlight reel to watch. We're going to add him just because it's late and just because I think it's really important to constantly be churning out the running backs, and obviously it's a great running back class. Late in the draft, I'm pretty much going to add a running back for almost every team late in the class just because that's where the best value is. Like, you got a guy who can legitimately help your offense, can help you move the ball down the field in the 7th round. Like, you can't beat that. And he probably will be probably not 7th. He's probably closer to like a 5th round guy, but he's going to be in that range. And then with 7th round pick, let's just take a flyer on a cornerback. Let's go Mac McWilliams. Again, those late round picks, you can't overthink them. All right. Early on when I started doing 7-round mocks for a lot of different teams, I was like really diving into the 7th round and acting like these guys were anything more than total lottery ticket depth pieces that you're hoping beyond hope can first of all make the roster and then somehow develop into a low end starter to high end backup. That's your best case scenario. And then every once in a while you get a guy who breaks through that mold and just ends up being a star or, a really good starter, whatever it is. But obviously the percentage chance on that is super low. And why would we spend too much time overthinking? Let's just look at position, look at, a part of the team that you want to add a little bit of depth to that fit really well with cornerback. So yeah, we're going to add a cornerback there. Looking at this class overall, look, I don't know what I'm going to get here. PFF gave me an F for Jalen Walker, and I get it. I get that was a bold take. I get that I don't know what I'm going to get in the comments here. I don't know if this is going to be something that people are going to love or hate. I don't know. I like it. I think Jalen Walker's awesome. I think he can be a difference maker. I think you pair him up with a TJ Sanders. Your defensive line got a lot better. Jalen Walker off ball, probably he'd be a smaller edge rusher, or an off-ball linebacker. But man, you just watch him in college, and again, there's just something to be said about a guy who's a ball-hawking, playmaking dude. I call him a dude because he's a fucking dude. Like, he's one of those guys on the defense. And I get that the argument is, well, where do you play him? Does he fit in the NFL? Is he a tweener? Okay, maybe. And maybe you miss, and maybe I'm just wrong about this guy, but there's just something to be said about a dude who makes this many plays, that is this physically impressive, that has this much twitch and explosiveness. I just believe in him. I believe in him, and you put him in the right position to succeed. I think he will. I think he can be a difference maker on that defense, and I think he can do a lot of different things. Look, he might be Micah Parsons. he could have that type of arc. He might not, and he might just be a total miss. But I'll spend the 10th pick in this draft, especially on a chance to have a Micah Parsons. This draft is a crapshoot after pretty much 8, or really even like 6, because there's so many names that are like, it's this close. The difference between the 10th pick and, I don't know, the 41st pick from a talent perspective, it's this close. Quinshon Judkins, TJ Sanders, they're both really, really good for their positions. I think Jalen Walker is too. But Jalen Walker has that high-end elite upside. You're swinging. We're Aaron Judge. We're Aaron Judge. Hopefully not in the playoffs, but we're Aaron Judge, and we're going for it all. We're swinging for the fucking fences. Let's hit a home run with a Jalen Walker. That's the thought process there. Let me know what you think. And then, man, this draft just fell perfectly. Got the interior guy. Got the running back. Ben Johnson got his guy. Kevin Winston Jr. got the safety. That was one of the bigger needs on defense. Kevin Byard isn't gonna live forever. I promise. He's just not. He's an older dude. You gotta replace him at some point. Kevin Winston Jr. comes in. Does he start right away? Maybe not. I don't know if he has to, and it might be a tougher transition because of the injury. I'm not sure, but he's gonna get some playing time. And he's a special player. If the injury doesn't happen, he would have been borderline top 40 pick, top 30 pick type guy, and then got some depth at the interior offensive line and running back later in the draft. So, hey, overall, I think this is an absolutely excellent class for the Bears. Let me know what you guys think. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It really, really helps out a small channel like mine trying to grow. Love the NFL draft. I spend so much time working on learning about these players, studying these players, ranking and grading these players. So to have the payoff at this time of year and get to really talk about it and break it down is a ton of fun for me. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.